On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very transformative treat. Known globally as the father of biohacking, he is a multiple-time New York Times bestselling author, CEO of Upgrade Labs, and host of a Webby Award-winning Top 100 podcast, The Human Upgrade, just to name a few. He is a maverick in the entrepreneurial health science space and the brain behind the global phenomenon Danger Coffee, creator of Bulletproof Diet, and his ability to apply neuroscience to personal transformation is second to none. Big facts. As the founder and CEO of Upgrade Labs, the world's first franchise of biohacking gyms, as well as Danger Coffee, he's on a mission to enhance mental and physical performance through cutting-edge science, which I deeply admire. His journey has been one of relentless pursuit, collaborating with the foremost doctors, researchers, and innovators for over 2 decades to discover revolutionary methods and products for peak performance. Investing over $2 million in his own biology, he's tested the boundaries of human capabilities for the sake of science, evolution, and revolution. By using science and biohacking technology to give people ultimate control of their body and mind, his mission is to help people upgrade to a happier, more conscious state, one cell at a time. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human and father. Please welcome the dynamic, transformative, trailblazing, and handsome, the abundant father of biohacking, Dave Asprey. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, man. That was a lot of adjectives. Thank you.
My pleasure. I hope I did good by you. I take great pride in those. As I always love to say to our mutual friend, it's your story. You wrote it. I just said it with a little bit of enthusiasm and some adjectives.
Love it. Well, let's go deep. How can I help?
Go deep. Yeah, I love it. For our listeners, in case you're not familiar, my best suggestion is to do a deep dive, play catch up, check out all the unbelievable stuff Dave has going on. What I think is most valuable is we just dive right in. He said go deep. Biohacking, a lot of people talk about that these days, basically brought that to the mainstream. For the listener that's listening right now that has heard that, they want to get involved, they're not even 100% sure what it is. For the novice, what is biohacking?
Back in 2011, I was looking for a word that would bring together the longevity people that I've been working with for a very long time, and neuroscientists and Navy SEALs and bodybuilders and powerlifters and pro athletes and biochemists and experts in nootropics and cognitive enhancement. And the uniting element was that we wanted our bodies and minds to do what we wanted instead of what they were just doing. So I came up with this new term, biohacking. And the definition is the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so you have full control of your own biology. And in 2018, Webster's dictionary added biohacking to the list of new words in the English language. And my name's actually there in the online dictionary.
Yes, it is. I love it, first of all. And it's cool to kind of do a backstory on that because these days, I feel like everybody's heard of that. And so many people want to get involved. For your morning routine, for your biohacking strategies and so forth, what are some essentials that you do?
The most important thing you can know about a morning routine is that if you do the same thing every morning, you're probably doing biohacking wrong. It's so convenient to say, well, if something works, I'll just do it every single day. But what if something only works if you do it twice a week or every other week or twice a day? And so the vast majority of us just benefit from saying today and every day, I'm going to set aside a certain amount of time, a half hour, 10 minutes, an hour, and I'm going to do what's going to serve my goals best during that time for where I am today. It's highly personalized. And if people did what I did, look, I take 150 supplements a day. I'm planning to live to at least 180, and I have certain genetics. I used to weigh 300 pounds. I used to have chronic fatigue syndrome and a bunch of other health issues. So if you did everything I did, and you're a 90-pound Asian grandmother, you're probably just going to get disaster pants from it. So it's a mistake to do what everyone else does. Steve Jobs' morning routine. You're not Steve Jobs. Neither am I. So the idea is that you must come up with a time slot and an amount of energy that you're willing to spend every day to improve who you are and how you show up biologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And there are some things, though, that work really, really well. Number one, don't take your phone out of airplane mode until you've done things that you need to do. When my kids were younger, the deal was my phone doesn't go off airplane mode until I drop them off at school. And that means I'm present. And you really don't want to turn your phone on and start getting other people's priorities until you've done a little bit of breath work or meditated. But the simplest thing you can do when you wake up is make yourself a cup of coffee. I recommend Danger Coffee because who knows what you might do. That's my new coffee brand, post Bulletproof. I have nothing to do with Bulletproof anymore. And then go outside. And you're already going to drink coffee, so now you're getting minerals in your coffee. And when you go outside, sunlight is a signal to your body of what time of day it is. 5% of the cells in your eyes, they're not to see light that you'll ever process. They go directly into the timing system of your body. So when you have warm colored light, like sunrise coming in, it tells every system in your body, oh, it's time to wake up and get going. And if you go in the middle of the day, oh, look, it's middle of the day. Bright sunlight from above. And then in the evening, see the sun go down. And that says, oh, it's time to wind down. Now, I travel a lot. I'm not always indoors or outdoors, but in the morning, I have bright lights that are warm coming in from the side. And at night, if I'm in a hotel or something, I use actually something I invented. It's called True Dark glasses. And these automatically will change the color and angle of the light for me so that I get the results that I'm looking for.
Where do I even begin? So much to unpack. First of all, start from the top. You mentioned you're looking to at least 180. Why 180? Where does that number come from?
Well, if you think about it, our current best is about 120. So that's what we can do today. And let's go back 120 years. This was before World War I, where we still fought a lot of it with horses. We didn't have airplanes yet. We couldn't spell DNA because we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what a mitochondria was. In fact, there was a lot we didn't know. So understanding that we're in a very different place now, my bet is that given all of the advancements in longevity science, AI, the fact that we double our knowledge of biology every 72 days, and that rate of doubling is increasing, you think we can do 50% better than our current best in the next 130 years?
Yes.
I'm betting yes, because I work with the companies and the inventors who are doing that, and I've worked with them for more than 2 decades.
Yeah, I love it. So many places we could take this. In regards to, I know when you mentioned your transformation that used to be over 300 pounds, a lot of people might find that hard to believe. They know you now. But during your transformation, when you lost a lot of weight and got super healthy and started to understand this stuff, is it true that you also increased your IQ?
Oh, yeah. Increasing your IQ is not as hard as people think it is. One of the things you can do is get rid of toxins that are lowering your IQ. So getting rid of lead and mercury will raise your IQ. Getting a good night's sleep will raise your IQ, or getting a bad night's sleep will lower your IQ. But aside from all the direct biological interventions like nootropics and cognitive enhancers, I've spent 6 months of my life with electrodes glued to my head, learning how to control my brainwaves. And I run a facility called 40 Years of Zen, where CEOs, executives, and pro athletes and basically global influencers come, and they spend 5 days upgrading their brains. And having a brain that more efficiently allocates energy, or a brain that makes energy more efficiently, can raise your IQ. My book on that is called Headstrong, and there's a very clear case for it. And if you wanted to do the most painful but free way of raising your IQ, an average of about 12 points, it's called dual N-back training. And this is something you can get on your phone for free. You don't need to pay for the apps. It's just the suckiest training ever. So if you want to feel what it's like to fail on a regular basis, what you do is you do this annoying game for 20 minutes a day where you just have to remember things that feel impossible to remember. And it's painful because it's hard and it doesn't hurt. You just feel like you're constantly failing, like you just can't do it. You feel dumb. But if you stick to it, after about 12 to 14 days, suddenly you can do it. It's because your brain will double your working memory. So suddenly you can easily remember two lists of things instead of remembering one list of things. Like imagine if two people gave you a phone number at the same time. Could you remember both lists of numbers? Well, if you do this training, you can. It sucks.
That's cool though. Just to know that it's a muscle that you could flex, that you could work
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that's mind blowing. You mentioned a couple things there, the Zen stuff, the danger coffee. When I think of you, I think of such a multifaceted, dynamic, passionate entrepreneur, so many different hats on. What are you personally most excited about right now?
I'm excited about what we're doing at Upgrade Labs. Upgrade Labs is the world's first biohacking facility where you could come in and do all the stuff that professional athletes or billionaires do to radically improve your health and your performance. So at our facilities now, we have 28 of them opening across the country. It's a franchise, so people can go to ownandupgradelabs.com and open one, wherever you are, and become a biohacking entrepreneur. And what I'm excited about is we're in the very late stages of launching our newest AI tool so that we can give you much better guidance on what to do, even if you're not yet living near an Upgrade Labs. The idea here is few people are going to listen to 1,200 episodes of my podcast, read all 8 of my books, and 3,000 long form blog posts, and 10,000 social media posts. If you do, it's about 2 years worth of college curriculum, like the number of hours in reading material from a 2-year degree. Well, if you're really into biohacking, thank you. But most of us, we're busy. So just tell me what to do. Right? So I have the tools, and all people have to do is go to daveasprey.com, sign up for the list, or maybe come to the biohacking conference, which is in Dallas, May 30th, 31st, June 1st. And well, I'm making it easy to know what to do. You don't need to do what I do. You don't need to follow any specific set of protocols that work for everyone, because there isn't such a thing. What there is a set of rules for what's going to work for you based on where you are today and where you want to go. And combining that with AI and all of the data from all of your wearables, all of your lab tests, so that you just know if I'm going to spend $1 or 1 minute, I'm going to get what I'm looking for out of it, and I can prove that it worked.
I love how passionate you are about this stuff. It's undeniable. You mentioned AI a couple of times. How much has that helped all the awesome stuff that you have going on? And did you think we'd be where we're at so quickly with AI?
I have a degree in AI, and I'm a tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley. And yes, I thought we'd be where we are with AI. If you'd have asked me 15 years ago, I would have probably said no. But once the first breakthrough happened, where we figured out that you could take an algorithm and feed it back in on itself, and that it would create almost evolutionary behavior, that was when it's like, finally, someone cracked the code on this. And now I'm really excited. And the speed of change in AI is something that our human brains have a very hard time imagining, because it is so incredibly fast. It's not an exponential growth rate. It's a exponential growth rate. So the world is going to look very different every 6 months. And the side effect of that is that if you're working with the tools and the knowledge that I have, and that leaders in the longevity field have, it's going to get easier and easier to apply what works. I spent $2 million and over 20 years on upgrading my biology, on reversing my age, increasing my IQ, getting rid of prediabetes, high risk of stroke and heart attack, arthritis, obesity, all the things. And I shouldn't have had to do that. It should have cost me about $20,000, and it shouldn't have taken 20 years. If I'd have had this knowledge when I was 19, I would have been much more financially successful, because I wouldn't have been so tired and brain fogged out all the time, or anxious, or just angry and reactive. And I would have suffered a lot less. So it's actually much easier and cheaper than it ever has been. The problem is you go online and you get some random influencer who's, Kale, I heard kale's good for you, so I'm just going to say it with a real excited voice. I'm going to clog your kidneys with kidney stones, 70% of which are caused by plants, not animals. So we're getting a lot of bad advice from passionate people who are passionate without science, without understanding, without working with longevity doctors, without reading the research. And what that means is maybe that person's right, maybe they're not. And maybe they're right for 80% of people, but not right for you. So what I decided to do when I weighed 300 pounds was I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to be religious about it. I'm going to do 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week, half weights, half cardio. And I'm never going to fail. I would just take off Sundays. And I did this even when I was going through my final parts of my degree, even when I had a date, even if I was sick, it just didn't matter. It was my top priority. And at the end of that, 702 hours over 18 months, I went in weighing 300 pounds. I went out weighing 300 pounds. I went in with a 46-inch waist. I went out with a 46-inch waist. Did I have more muscle? Yeah. Did I lose any weight? No. Did I lose the fat? Probably lost a little bit of fat and replaced it with muscle, but I was still fat. I'm a 32-inch waist today. I work out. You ready for this? Actually, how much would you guess I work out? This is how I look. You know, I know that's a caffeine molecule there, but
I would say that you work out 6 days a week.
20 minutes a week, not 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a week using Upgrade Labs. I have AI workouts that are just better than what you can do by picking up rocks in the gym or running on a treadmill instead of running outdoors. Those are terribly inefficient ways of exercising. And frankly, I don't want to spend 8 hours a week exercising. I want to spend that with my community, with my companies, creating, meditating, doing all the things. So the ROI, or what I call ROE, return on energy. You put some amount of energy and time into something, do you get more energy back or less energy back? Your workouts ought to be like that. I can be here never hungry. I'm at 6% body fat. See, it's about 1:30 where I am now. I just had my first meal of the day. I was on stage all morning. I wasn't hungry, just focused, calm, peaceful. You can do it, but if you work out every single day, because that's what good people do, you're probably overtrained. I have so many friends in their 50s. They have probably bigger shoulders than I do. And they're like, Dave, I go to the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I work out for an hour a day. And I've never worked this hard to be this fat, because they all have big round bellies. Why? Because their cortisol levels are high, because they're overtraining and under recovering. So what I figured out at Upgrade Labs is that recovery is what's hard for people who are trained to be able to push themselves and work hard, including me. So I can use technology to make you recover faster than you're supposed to. And I can use technology to get a signal to change into your body very, very quickly. So you send the body a strong signal to change, and then you send the body a strong signal to recover.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep, it works.
Do you have a particular workout that you do love?
Yeah, the workouts that I do, there's two primarily. One of them is from, actually, they're both from Upgrade Labs. So one of them is called the AI Bike. And what the AI Bike does is it gives you, this is actually gonna make people mad. It gives you cardiovascular performance. We measure that with VO2 max. Well, if you were to do an hour a day of spin class or jogging, 5 days a week, you're going to get a 2% improvement after 2 months. If you do 15 minutes a week at Upgrade Labs on the AI Bike, you will never sweat. Most of it is actually boring, but you will improve by 12%. So in the amount of time every week that you spend brushing your teeth, you can improve your cardiovascular performance by 12%. That's equal to extending your life by about 2 years if you look at the association between VO2 max and longevity.
Understood. So valuable. Mind blowing, if I'm being honest. So there's two different ages, right? Or maybe more. One would be what your birth certificate says, whatever the case would be. And then one is the condition that your body's in right now.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a term for that. What is yours right now in terms of the body and so forth?
It turns out there's more than two different ages. There's the calendar age. Then there's an age that's measured by your DNA methylation. And this is a very rigorous scientific study of about 600,000 markers. And we now can say, well, people who are this age on average have this amount of methylation of these specific markers. It's a very data intensive AI driven process. And inside of that, there's two markers. There's intrinsic and extrinsic age. Extrinsic is what is the effect of your lifestyle and your basically your choices on your longevity. How much is that contributing? And the other one is, how's your body doing biologically? If you look at my extrinsic age today, it is 19.35 years younger than my current age. In other words, if you have biology relatively similar to mine and you do what I'm doing, you can have almost no impact from lifestyle on aging. What that translates to is another thing that's really important, which is the speed at which you age. And we can now measure that. I age at 72% the rate of normal people. Some people age faster than normal, some people age average, and some people way less. I'm at the very low end of that curve. And what that means is over the course of the next 10 years, I'm only going to age about 7.2 years. And over the next 30 years, I am going to be, about 9 years younger than someone who's not following a longevity protocol. And it's getting better every year. I just had gene therapy that changes genes in my body temporarily for about 2 years to secrete a lot of longevity factors. The average person who does that therapy takes 9 years off their biological age. There's also a measure of age based on the amount of fat packed around your organs. So as we age, we put more and more visceral fat. This is the dangerous fat. You can't really see it unless you have a lot of it. But you can see people who look lean, but they're just packed with fat around their organs, and it's very, very dangerous. And as you age, that goes up. So I have low levels of visceral fat for an 18-year-old, even though the calendar thinks I'm 51 and I think I'm 39. And I would argue from the lab data. There's also brain speed, which is underappreciated. As you age, your brain gets slower. There's a reaction time on reality. And this is kind of spooky, because if I do this, I clapped. And you know that, well, the sound had to get to you through the internet and then from your speakers to your ears, and then you heard it. Mm-hmm. Except that's not how it works. Because after your body received the sound, about a third of a second later, your brain got the first signal, the first electrical signal that says, oh, there's a sound, I should process that. So what happened during that third of a second of time that you can't see because your body hides it from you? Well, your body decided whether or not it was going to let you hear that. And you can measure how much of a reaction time on reality do you have. And an 18-year-old has a 240 millisecond response time, about a quarter second. And a 30 or 40 or a healthy 50 or 60-year-old should be about 350 milliseconds. I still have the brain response time of an 18-year-old. And then you could measure arterial flexibility via something called pulse wave analysis. This is how flexible are your arteries. I'm 24 from that perspective. And so which of those is my correct age? I don't know. But in none of my tests do I test above my calendar age. And in many of them, it's far less.
And the trajectory you're on, you're going to continue to age slower, which is awesome.
I'm going to continue to age slower for the next 3 to 5 years. And after that, I'm going to age backwards.
Yeah. Anyone that knows you or is familiar with your work can argue with that.
And it's funny. There are still people who say, Dave, you were never 300 pounds. Show me pictures. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of things there. Number one, 30 years ago, we didn't have digital cameras. Number two, when you're 300 pounds, you don't like your picture taken. But there's an article in Entrepreneur Magazine because I am the first person to sell anything over the internet before e-commerce had the name e-commerce. And it was a t-shirt that said caffeine, my drug of choice, and it had that same caffeine molecule on it. Right. So I take my fat picture from Entrepreneur Magazine when I was 23. Like, I'm pretty sure 1 million people saw my fat picture. You think I wasn't 300 pounds? Of course I was. Right. I have the stretch marks to prove it, and I have stupid abs without spending more than 20 minutes a week on it. It's ridiculous. And I struggled so much when I was obese. I've been a vegan. I've been a raw vegan. I've tried all the things. And eventually I just said, I'm gonna have to read all the science. And it comes down to make your body better at turning air and food into electricity, heat, and hormones and proteins. And that'll fix your metabolic problems. If you fix your metabolism, you don't get diabetes. You don't get diabetes, your risk of heart attack, stroke, cancer, and Alzheimer's goes through the floor. And in my big book on longevity, which is called Superhuman, I'm like, step one, don't die. So the big four killers, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. Let's not get those. And just that alone, the quality of your life is going to be much better, even if you're one of those people who still thinks that you're only going to live to 90. And there are some people who pretend to be longevity doctors who are saying, oh, we're never going to extend human life. You should just go to the gym for 2 hours a day. And that's 1970s laughable advice. This morning, I was at a longevity conference, and we're all talking about how we're adding 10 or 20 years to the human lifespan now. And it's only going up from there. There are people listening to the show who will be healthy at 140 years old.
Period. Full stop. I'm sure there's some listeners right now that are saying, what are some things that I can begin to apply now to at least not age faster? I've heard you talk about alcohol before and so forth. I imagine that doesn't help. What are some other things that people can do?
Yeah. Sadly, alcohol is just not good for you. The alcohol industry has spent so much money trying to tell you it's good for you. So has the tobacco industry. And it's funny. I use pharmaceutical nicotine in low doses as a longevity drug because people who smoke, well, they get cancer, but they don't get Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. So nicotine, aside from tobacco, in low doses protects the brain from some of the effects of aging, and it mimics exercise. It's actually good for you. Smoking and tobacco are bad for you, to be really clear. That's one thing. And then alcohol, it just makes you old. And it does this because the first step of breaking it down in your liver and primarily in your large intestine is alcohol turns into a chemical called acetaldehyde. And this chemical causes something called advanced glycation end products. What that means is it goes through your body and it browns your tissues the way, well, basically the way onions brown in a pan. It takes the carbohydrates in your body, there's not many of them, but it cross-links them so it breaks your proteins to become dysfunctional. So even that one drink per night, it ruins your quality of sleep, which also increases aging, but it directly ages your tissues. So I would say if you're going to drink, make sure that it's older than you, because then the dollars will restrict how much you drink. And you can do some things that I've written about for 12 years now to protect yourself from some of the downsides of alcohol. Bottom line, though, is you'll save money if you don't drink. And you can take that money and use it to buy stem cells or gene therapy or a membership at Upgrade Labs or whatever it is, just some good supplements. The number of people say, I can't afford longevity, who spend $500 a month on drinks. It doesn't make sense to me. That's not what I do. I have a drink once every 3 months. It's really, really good alcohol, and I take all the supplements with it, and I know I won't sleep well. I know I'll feel like crap the next day, but why would I do that every single night? It doesn't work.
Yeah. On those rare occasions, what is your drink of choice?
I really like sake.
Sake?
Yeah, so I'll go out to
Nice.
high-end sushi place, and you might as well have some good sake with that.
I love it. I was checking out some of your content, which I highly suggest everybody do immediately following this conversation if you're not already. And one of the things I saw you talking about was, can you biohack grief? And I'd like to ask you right now, can you biohack grief?
Absolutely. There are a lot of emotional things that we go through, and there's just a big lack of understanding about emotions and where they come from. And in the West, we believe emotions are in our brain. Emotions are in your body. That third of a second where your body decides what it's going to let you see or hear or feel, well, grief comes from there, and then it gets caught in the brain. And so you can biohack grief by going through a structured meditative process. It's the one that I use at 40 Years of Zen, where you're feeling sad because, say, someone died, right? Well, the first thing you do, or maybe because you got divorced, right? The first thing you do, and this is the hardest part, is you sit down and you say, all right, I'm going to re-experience this. I'm going to just spend 2 minutes. You don't want to spend 10 minutes on this. I'm just going to tap into how bad it actually feels. I'm going to feel it in my gut. I'm going to feel the hairs on the back of my neck. Like I'm going to clench my teeth and like just acknowledge and feel this sucked. And it shouldn't feel good when you do that. But then the first step is you find one thing you're grateful for, right? What do you mean be grateful? Someone just passed away. Well, did they have a good death? Were they surrounded by loved ones? Did they have a good life? Did you get a chance to say goodbye? There is one good thing in every bad thing. And by recognizing a tiny little scrap of gratitude, even in a situation you don't like, it changes the state of your hormones, your neurotransmitters, and your neurobiology. And that opens the doorway to go in and actually let go of whatever it is. And it's usually something that you're feeling about the person, and it's usually something you're feeling about yourself. And what that process is actually forgiveness. So it's the combination of gratitude plus forgiveness equals grace. It allows you to be untriggerable. And the thing that used to be somebody that would always push your buttons and you're just so sad, or instead you're profoundly grateful and calm and peaceful, and you can see the good and you can see the bad, but neither one of them owns you. That's what sets people free. And that's why biohacking is so important. If you want to do a process like that, it's the final 2 chapters of my most recent book called Smarter, Not Harder. And we do that with neuroscience at 40 Years of Zen. That's how I worked out that whole process. You cannot let something go until you have gratitude. So many people say, I'm going to work on my grief, but they end up just wallowing in it. And they ruminate, which strengthens the pathways of pain. So the more you grieve without processing, the more you strengthen the pain you feel. So it's gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. It's why I've been recommending write down something you're grateful for in the morning or at night. Just write down 3 things. And the reason you write it down is this automated system in your body will make you forget good things and make you remember bad things. And when I was really digging in on this gratitude process, I decided every day I was going to write down everything I was grateful for. So my goal was come up with 50 things that happened that day that I was grateful for. And I started and I could come up with 3. This is really hard. And then suddenly I could do 5 and then 10. But during that time, my book on longevity called Superhuman, it was a New York Times bestselling book. I got a call that day from my publisher saying, you made the New York Times list. And when I was writing all the things I was grateful for that day, it wasn't on my list because I'd already forgotten it. Right? This is the power of your ego, the power of your cell biology to make you forget good things and make you grieve, make you worry, make you anxious, be the critical voice in your head. And so biohacking, you change your biology. So your biology has enough energy for you to do the personal development work. So you have the energy at the end of the day to sit down and say, today, I'm going to lessen the pain that I'm in today because I have enough energy to do personal development work. That has been just profoundly transformative for me. I don't talk about this as much, but when I was in Silicon Valley, I was kind of an asshole. I made and lost $6 million before I was 28. I didn't know it, but I was actually anxious all the time. I just thought that was the normal state of things. And I was pretty angry all the time. And as I learned these techniques, it became really clear, turn up your energy so you can do the work. But if you're low energy, everything feels like it's climbing Mount Everest. But if you turn your energy up first, think, okay, I can handle that problem today. It is about creating resilience so that you can stay in whatever your chosen state is, no matter what happens in the world around you. People can be great or people can be total jerks and try to steal your stuff. I've had people try to steal one of my companies. I've had another group of investors crash one of my companies. I've been through a divorce. I've been through health problems. And the amount of resilience that we're capable of when your head's on straight, when your heart's on straight, and you know how to do gratitude and forgiveness, you can process the most terrible things in your life in a couple hours of structured work. I just find it works better with a computer stuck to my head. Now, because of that, I'm like, how do I make it so you don't have to come to Seattle and spend 5 days with my team of neuroscientists and $16,000 like, senior executives do? So members of Upgrade Labs, we have 28 locations opening across the US and more opening every day, at least every week. Well, we have neurofeedback there where you can hook a computer up to your head. You don't get to do the full 40 years in program, but we'll help put your brain in the state that makes you in charge of yourself. So if you're going to spend an hour at a gym, give me 5 minutes and we'll fix your cardio. Give me another 15 minutes, we'll do the muscles you need. And the rest of the time, why don't you train your brain? And profound changes can happen in people in short periods of time. It's just faster than meditation by itself.
This is the good stuff. I mean, this is all good, but I'm so happy that I asked you that. And at the beginning of it, you said the word untriggerable. I mean, how powerful is that? Someone could just grab that from this conversation and apply the formula you utilize. Forget about it.
Well, here's the thing. If you can be triggered, it means you're carrying a loaded gun. That's the definition of what a trigger is. So in most parts of the world, walking around with a loaded gun is at least impolite. I live in Texas. I think it's a normal thing here. But the thing is here, if you don't even know you're carrying a loaded gun and someone can trigger you, it means you're programmable. It means others can take over your state and you are helpless. So if you feel like a victim or you feel like other people around you have to do certain things so you can feel a certain way, you need to step in and do that reset process over and over and over until you're no longer a victim. Because the reality is you're not a victim. We've all had really shitty things happen to us. And some of us recover and others blame everyone else and spend the rest of their life trying to make everyone else change. Doesn't work.
Important. It's so powerful. And the ego. I think that, based upon the way that you described it, it's very obvious you do a ton of spirituality. The ego is an opponent that we all have. I don't think we'll ever be able to destroy them forever. I don't even think that's the intention. I look at it as a negative purpose with a negative force with a positive purpose when we can resist the temptation of giving into it and be able to overcome it. I know you talk about the benefit and power of spirituality in your well-being and so forth. How important is spirituality to you just in general?
Spirituality is terribly important. It starts inside your cells. Even your ego is an emergent consciousness, an emergent behavior from a distributed consciousness throughout your body. The ego's job is to be a part of your operating system that's invisible to you. And its job is to keep your body alive. And there's things it'll do. And in the world of biohacking, I know what they are. It's predictable because all life has to do this to stay alive. The first thing that any life form, even a little bacteria, and your body is built on little tiny bacteria called mitochondria. So whether you're a zebra, whether you're a tree, whether you're a bacteria or a human, step one, if something is scary, run away from, kill, or hide. That's fear. It's the first F word. So responding to fear takes all your resources immediately because, let's face it, if something eats you, it's game over. So for 2 billion years, life has evolved to not die first. That's fear. Problem is, we will allocate all of our resources to things that are scary, even if they're not really dangerous. The second F word is food, because famine has killed every type of thing on the planet. So if something is not scary, your automated systems look at it and say, can I eat it? Right? And then to stay alive for multiple generations, the third F word, can you imagine what that one is?
Hit me.
You don't know? It seems obvious.
No.
I was trying to get you to drop an F-bomb.
That's what I know.
It's fertility, if you want to be polite about it. So it's fear, food, and fertility in order, right? This is what your body does before you get a chance to think about something. And based on that, it's going to create a feeling and it's going to give you the feeling. So if it's your mother-in-law's criticizing you, it's probably going to trigger, strangely, fear. Fear of not being loved, fear of not having a family, fear of not being a part of your community, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to think any of this. It's built in. And you're going to be reactive, right? Because you're going to do fight or flight. So you're going to argue against it or you're going to want to go away and all that kind of stuff, but it steals your energy. If you can remove that trigger of being afraid of criticism, then you can just laugh. Just be like, look at that. I had a time once where I'm running a company doing $50 million a year and had a conversation with some relatives. What?
I said no big deal, 50 million a year.
Yeah, well, I grew it to 140 million a year, so it was still a small company then. That was bulletproof. And then they fired me, and we'll say revenues went down. But interestingly, that family member looked at me and said, "We're really worried that you don't have a job and that we're going to have to spend our retirement to pay for taking care of you." And I could have been really triggered. Instead, I just laughed and I said, "I'm so happy you told me that, because I'm worried that I'm going to have to spend my retirement taking care of you." And then they had this uncomfortable pause and they said, "Okay, we'll stop." I said, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." But I could have been like, "Yeah, or I could have gone home and lost sleep over it." Instead, it was just the funniest thing ever, because like the view of reality that each of us has is based on all the experiences we've had, including all the traumas. So if you believe in your bones that the only thing you can do to be a safe, financially safe person is you have to be a banker or an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. It depends on where in the world your family's from. There's different stories about, what are the good jobs. But if you're not one of those, you're probably homeless. But the reality is there's lots of ways to make a living in the world. So there's what we feel and we believe that to be true. And then there's what's actually true based on numbers, based on results. That's why I exercise the way I do. Every day, I measure thousands of points on my body. It takes 2 minutes. It's what we do at Upgrade Labs, medical grade measurements. And I know how I'm doing. It doesn't matter how I feel I'm doing. I know how I'm doing. And then I also question myself, how do I feel? Am I happy or am I not happy? Like my biology can be good and I can be unhappy. Well, at least I know it's not something that's happening in my cells. Then I know it's something in my brain and I can work on, what am I missing here? What am I holding on to? And I finally just realized over the course of years, dealing with probably more stress than most people could ever imagine, I just, anytime something triggers me, I run the reset process that I teach people so that I just let it go, so that it doesn't weigh me down. Because I want my body folding proteins the right way, I want my body building muscle, and my body staying healthy. And I want my energy to go towards creating meaningful, good stuff in the world instead of just bitching about stuff. But what's interesting now is we have 3 F words that your body does automatically: fear, food, fertility. And there's a 4th one, and it's friend. All life on Earth will, just without even thinking about it, support its own species and other life around it. It's part of what's built into us. So it's fear, food, friend. But if we're afraid, if we're feeling hungry because we eat junk food all the time, or if there's no love in our life, there's no energy left to be a member of your community. And the final F word after that, we have fear, food, fertility, friend, it's forgiveness. If there's enough energy left after all those things, then you have the energy to go in and let go of something, which turns down the amount of energy that goes into fear. And if you set that process up on a regular basis, what you find is you become profoundly functional in the world, but you also become a lot happier, which is a really good thing.
Forgiveness, gratitude, all these things that you talk about, there's sometimes the simplest things to do, but sometimes the simplest things to do are also the simplest not to do. And it's a commitment.
It is a commitment. And it's okay to not be perfect. A lot of people fall in this trap of perfectionism. Men and women usually hit it differently. But in the world of biohacking, in the world of longevity, if you have a story that you have to do it perfectly or you're not safe, you're just never safe. There's no such thing as perfection.
No.
I like to joke with waiters at restaurants. I'm well known for saying that grass-fed meat is much healthier than industrially raised meat, and industrial meat is still better for you than fake meat. So I'll go into a restaurant and I'll say, "Hey, do you have a vegan-free menu?" And you just wait and like, "Oh, we have a vegan." And then they stop and they start laughing and they go, "Oh, thank God. Okay, we just have a normal menu for them." I'm like, "Okay, that's great." And then I say, "Oh, I want the beef." "Oh, is it grass-fed?" And they'll go, Yeah, it's grass-fed." I know because I picked the restaurant because it was grass-fed. I go, "That's great. What kind of cow was it?" And like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." Like, uh, was it raised outside at least? Like, yeah, it was raised outside. Like, okay. Was it raised by monks? And by then they're like, they know I'm just messing with them. So they go, yeah, it was raised by monks. 100%. I go, great. Were they left-handed monks? And it's like, you can always have another layer of perfection. You can never be perfect, right? You know, was the cow an odd number of days old?
Yes.
What was its astrological sign? Like, dude, who cares, right?
Oh
But
man.
you can be more and more and more and more perfect. And if you're stuck in that around longevity, around biohacking, around fear of stuff in the air around you, you will not be a functional human being. And I see this all the time. You have anorexia, which is fear of eating any food. You have orthorexia, which is fear of eating the wrong food, knowing that there is no perfect food. So part of your job, just as a functional human being, whether you want to say you're a biohacker or not, is to just understand that every single choice you make, there could be a slightly better one, and you might be wrong. And that's okay, because no one always makes every decision perfectly. And you're perfectly lovable and you're perfectly safe, even if you make really crappy decisions sometimes.
And we will. It's part of the human experience.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about what they need to add to be more successful. I love to just tell people, let me just give you one thing to let go of. That's the need to be perfect. If you
Yep.
wait till the perfect time, you'll never start.
There's also something that happens in our bodies, and you learn this when you start changing the environment around you so that you're more in control of your biology and you get this free energy. You start asking yourself questions, you start being curious. And curiosity is actually the other antidote for fear, aside from forgiveness, which will permanently eradicate a fear. Curiosity will take you out of a fear state. So if you walk into a room and you're like, ugh, I'm feeling, whether you want to call it fear or uncomfortable or whatever, instead of leaning into that, like, well, that guy's a total asshole. No, hold on. Just have a little process running that looks at it and goes, I wonder why. And the wondering part of it takes you out of, I want to smack him, into, is it him or is it me? Like, I wonder what his mom did to him. Right. And all of a sudden, like, you just don't know. And the classical example here is you're driving and someone cuts you off in traffic. Okay. There was a time in Silicon Valley where the biggest muscle in my body was my middle finger muscles,
I believe it.
right, from driving, right? And the story is they cut in front of you because they think they're more important than you, right? Or whatever the other thing is. And I just tell myself a story now that, well, if they cut in front of me, I probably wasn't close enough to the car in front of me to maximize the number of cars on the road. That's on me. And they're probably on the way to the hospital for the birth of their child. Like, dude, you go. I'm still going to get there. It doesn't matter. The feeling that it matters is strong. The reality is it doesn't matter. So I just choose a story out of curiosity that's more functional for me. And it doesn't matter. The story about him feeling more important than you or him being on the way to the hospital, they're just fiction. Maybe he just didn't see you. You don't know, and it doesn't matter. But to deal with the feeling is there, and you get to the point where you just don't care. Same thing with tickets. I used to lose my mind when I would get a ticket. It's like, I can't do it. And one day I was like, hold on a second. This is just a tax on driving if you commute a lot. Like, so my average ticket cost is, $1 a day. Okay, I pay tolls, same thing. And I lost all issues with that. And then I started getting a lot less tickets.
Makes sense. You have such a beautiful perspective. Your point of view creates a reality.
It's your point of view, and it's also that ego, that system of mitochondria. You get to program it to see the reality that you want to see, because there's an infinite number of things happening in the world around you right now that your body filters out automatically. You cannot see them. If you were to see all the spectrums of light, all the little vibrations, and you were to manage consciously each little valve opening and closing and each cell deciding to do something, your tiny little brain would be overwhelmed in seconds. So we have this beautiful, highly elegant, efficient system that's making all kinds of decisions for you. And it decides, of all the things in the world, what are you going to get to see right now? And you can program it to seek out things that are amazing, or you can program it to seek out things that are out to get you. And this is why when you get into the spiritual side of things, You see books like The Secret. You see people talking about manifestation and things like that. Well, it's your distributed network of mitochondria that's manifesting. It's not your brain. Your brain's way too slow. Your brain's a third of a second behind reality all the time.
So just so grateful for this conversation.
Thanks, man.
Before we land the plane, we'll do maybe quick trivia, 1 or 2 word answers, whatever comes to your mind. Ready for me?
Sure.
All right, let's get it. Dave, your favorite movie?
The Matrix.
Can't go wrong. Your last meal on Earth would be?
Grass-fed ribeye, cooked rare. And if it's my last meal, I don't have to deal with gastric stuff. So give me a really good cheesecake that would just absolutely trash me the rest of the time.
Sounds great. And that cow would be a lefty, right?
Absolutely.
Your favorite guilty pleasure?
I don't practice guilt.
Beautifully said.
I have no guilty pleasures. I have lots of pleasures, but I don't feel guilt about any of them.
Beautiful answer. Your favorite book, not including one of yours?
The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene is just an epic, epic book. I've been honored to become friends with him. He's the guy who wrote 48 Laws of Power, and just that's his opus. Yeah.
Very familiar. I love that book. I love that book specifically, 48 Laws of Power. And last but not least, very deep, your favorite musician?
There's a lot of them, but I'm going to go with Metallica.
Enter Sandman?
Great album, but the Nothing Else Matters song is like a really legit musical creation.
And a bonus one. Where can everybody get some Danger Coffee?
Dangercoffee.com is the place to go. And it's got a therapeutic dose of trace minerals that make it so any effort you make, your body can respond to it because now it has the raw materials it needs. It's made a meaningful difference in my morning. Drink it black or put butter and MCT in it if you like. And just dangercoffee.com, because dangerous is something that can be kind of scary, but the scariest thing is to have no energy and to be peaceful because you're helpless. I want a world full of people so dangerous they choose to be peaceful, and that's why it's called Danger Coffee.
Okay. What's the best way for everybody to support you? How can they get involved?
Come to daveasprey.com, which is the center of everything. You can listen to the podcast, The Human Upgrade. And if you want to start a biohacking facility, go to ownandupgradelabs.com and you can become an entrepreneur tomorrow.
This was so much fun. Dave, hang up for 1 sec. I want to connect to you after. I want you to know the definition of wisdom, innovation, and authenticity. I can personally guarantee your best is yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets tonight.
Thank you, Craig.
So much fun. Thank you, Dave. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was skeptical to drop the F on my own show, but I should have.
That's all right. I don't know if you have the explicit lyrics or whatever thing, but I thought it was funny. I always try to get people to do that, so you didn't fall for it.
I love to stay connected.
All right. Do you have my mobile?
No.